Welcome, everyone, to the Recovered on Purpose show, Guest Saturdays. Today, we have a special guest, Marshal Gillen. Marshal has a past of being a 5-time college dropout, drug addict, and suicide survivor. He has now transformed his life into being a sober dad, award-winning speaker, and founder of Top Paid Speaker. Marshal has earned his clients more than $124 million in revenue and has now impacted more than 3 million lives globally. Stick around to hear his story and how his recovery has turned into this kind of success. Keep living Recovered on Purpose.
The black represents the darkness from which we came. The white represents the light in which we now live. And the red represents the passion it takes to live Recovered on Purpose.
All right, everyone, thank you so much for being here. Super excited for this interview. Marshal, thank you so much for being here, brother.
Yo, bro, thank you so much, man. Taking an opportunity to be on this show is an incredible one. And that intro video you have is insane, man. Like, I'm hyped up. I feel like I'm really literally coming out on stage. Like, it's a virtual event. So very, very cool. The Recovered on Purpose podcast. It's a true honor, Adam.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. Yeah, my friend Trevor made that for me, and like he made that music and everything. And the first time I heard it, I was beating my chest like, let's do this Recovered on Purpose show,
Let's
bro.
go, man.
Yeah.
I feel you, dude.
Yes.
I feel you, man. It's and what a cool way. And I didn't know this podcast existed until we got connected, and what an opportunity to be here, like I said. But you know what's interesting, Adam? I'm brand new to the sober community. It's 532 days at the time of recording this podcast. And it's like, as a speaker and somebody that travels around to all these events, I can't tell you how many more sober people or recovered addicts I keep running into event after event after event. And so I don't know if it's something in the water, if it's just God's time, but you know, the sober movement and people really wanting to take control of their life and recover from the things that are limiting them. It's the time is now. And
Amen.
so, you know, to be connected to this is just like, wow, look at this guy out here doing incredible things. And I know we're going to get into a lot today, but I think that the thing for all the listeners is just to remember, it's like, you matter. It is possible to recover. And these are the stories that are proving it. And so it's very cool. I'm excited to dive in.
Yeah, man. And something that I've actually learned is that, you know, a lot of people that recover, we tend to keep it to ourselves a lot of times because we feel like there might be a stigma. We feel like, you know, our recovery might hold us back from success, or it might make people judge us for having that kind of past. There's over 22 million people in America alone that are in recovery from substance use disorder. And how many people are you seeing out there telling their story of recovery, telling it publicly and not hiding away in the anonymous fellowships? And that's what the Recovered on Purpose show and Recovered on Purpose is all about. Is about us getting public about this. There's people like you that are doing, you know, 124 million in revenue for their clients, and you're sober. Like, that's the kind of story that we need to pass around so that people that are out there suffering know there's a successful, blessed, and abundant life in recovery, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think you nailed it on the head, and it really just is context. One of the things I love to talk about is like, you don't know what you don't know. I have a 10 and a 13-year-old boys. I'm a step parent too. You know, it's the same thing we're always telling them. It's like, you got to give yourself grace. You don't know what you don't know. And then being able to continue to learn and create that awareness. And I think that is the most important thing. I usually have my Sobriety Rocks gear on. And I didn't for this episode, which is, I'm just sitting here now, like, why am I not wearing my Sobriety Rocks gear? But it's curious because, like, when I go out, there is a demographic of a certain age or a certain, let's say, area or society where I travel in the country. And if I'm wearing a Sobriety Rocks thing, it's this very old school mentality where they're like, they do think I'm trying to make it all about me. And people who have said, like, you should keep that to yourself, or don't force your sobriety on me, right? Things like this. So to all the listeners, like, I get it. Adam and I hear you. We know that it's out there. But for every one person that comes up to me and says that, there's 50 people who have already come up to me, and they've been like I was just at an event in St. Louis 3 days ago at the time of shooting this podcast, right? Recording this podcast. And there was a guy who's been making a movement on TikTok, and he's doing these things, and he's a recovered addict. I guess we're kind of always recovering. And, you know, just to come up to me, and he's telling me about my TikToks, and he's telling me about the content that I've been making and how much is meant to. I'm like, this grown ass man, right? And coming up and telling me this. And so I think a lot of things that keep people from wanting to talk about the recoveries, like you said, being judged, fear of being criticized. But I'm just telling you all, I promise you, if you go out there and you're brave enough, and my tagline for my company, Adam, is your mess is your message. So if you're brave enough to go out there and turn your mess into your message, man, the power and the movement, the stuff that God's working through people who are willing to step up like that it's insane right now. And I've made a lot of money, done a lot of cool things, but none of it, and I truly mean it, none of it compares to when somebody sent me a video the other day, bro, of them dumping their bottles of booze down the sink. He's like, I owe it to my son. I'm starting, you know, nothing's better than that.
Amen. Amen. And something that I found in sharing my story, because I started like really getting outside of the fellowships. Like I stayed in fellowships and, you know, stayed in my recovery community. But when I really started getting out and really started telling my story, I started recognizing that I was actually making better connections and higher connections. And, you know, I became this person that was authentically me, and I didn't have anything to hide.
Yeah.
And I started, like, I was playing weekly squash with the Denver district judge. You know, I'm in a locker room with senators and things, and each one of them, every single person in there knows that, you know, at the time, 2.5 years ago, I was homeless and a drug addict, you know. Everybody that has a heart for addiction, because we all know that this is going on. We all know this is happening, right? And with 22 million people out there that consider themselves in recovery, just in America alone, that's a lot of people that can go out there and help the over 100,000 people that are dying per year.
Oh,
right?
100%. And I think that, you know, I know that you have a program for people called Recovery Speaker. I run a program called Top Paid Speaker. And I know that to men like you and women out there too doing the same thing, but I know that to men like you and I, we truly believe in the power of sharing your story.
Yes.
I mean, we've literally created a business and a movement around it. And it's not something we're just sitting up here like, oh, trying to sound cool. Like, oh, look at us podcast and we're speakers. It's like, nah, bro, there is real life power in sharing the things that you've messed up in, and then being willing to have the integrity and own the accountability, ownership to stand up and be like, you know what, I've messed up in the past, but I'm fixing it now. Because it's like Adam said, those senators or those judges, it's not necessarily even a heart for addiction, which it is. I think it's even more of like, it's an inspiration, because it doesn't, I always tell people, right, new levels, new devils. And so when you're broke and you're kind of in the throes of your storm, it's easy to look at somebody who has money, and we try to predicate our self-worth on our net worth, right? So I like to remind people, like, your net worth has nothing to do with your human worth. Yes. And so when we think about that, and I love that story that you share, you're like, I'm rubbing elbows with these people, because the story that they relate to is there's something in their life that's the devil right now that they are having a hard time finding the energy and creating the space for them to overcome. Maybe it's not addiction. It could be anything. Maybe they want to leave their job. Maybe they want to step down. Maybe they want to make that big move, do that big thing. And they're just not doing it. 90% of the people in the world are just not doing that thing that they want to do. And so for Adam or any addict, yes, it's the heart for recovery, but it's deeper than that. It's a leadership. It's when I take action to do something that's the hardest thing I could possibly do in my life. And then I'm the other guy. Like, you know, I always say, I'm like, people ask me how I can be so vulnerable online, or how can I share these stories? And I'll just be like, dude, I'm the guy showing up every day doing my job. Yeah. If you're not showing up every day doing your job, then you must be the other guy. And so to the other guy, when we are showing up doing our job and we're sharing our story, that person's like, damn, maybe I could do that too. And it don't matter how much money you have, man. If you can create inspiration and influence in somebody's life, that's the game changer. I mean, Jesus was a storyteller. You know, even when nobody wanted to hear him, he just got up the next day, went to the next town, you know, and only 12 people followed him. You know, there's a book written after there's only 12 followers. So just know that, you know, your table may stay small for a while, but a big impact can come from a small table.
Amen. Amen. And what I believe that I'm going to be raising up people that are greater than I am. I believe that I'm going to find people and continue to coach people. And I'm going to find these guys and these girls and these women and these men that have these stories that are going to impact, you know, thousands and hundreds of thousands of people when they get that confidence, because I believe there's a lot of people with the call to tell their story, a lot of people with that call. So let's get into your story a bit. Usually what we like to do with people that have overcome addiction on this show is we kind of let people know, like, I relate, you know, I went through this. So tell us a little bit about the things we were talking about from your past.
I would love to, man. And it's an honor to be able to share that story. I want to ask you a real quick question though. How old are you, Adam? If you don't mind me asking.
33.
Okay. I'm 37. I'll be 38 shortly. So this may not relate to you, but like, take a look at this picture. You see that?
Yeah, I do.
And you see, it's a dude.
Yeah,
It's a little kid on shoulders, right?
Yeah.
It's funny. And I saw that this morning, shortly after we were chatting about this podcast, and something related to me. And I was like, things aren't always as they look. And it was a really powerful thing for me to realize, because when I think about my addiction, things aren't always like they look. And so a lot of times addiction has a bad rap in our society because everybody can spot an addict. Oh, he's strung out. She's using. He looks like the type.
Yeah.
But there is a lot of people out there who don't look like the type. There's a lot of people out there that are struggling with addiction who don't look like the type. And that little meme I saw is funny because that was me. Things aren't always what they seem like at first glance. Sometimes you got to take a closer look. And so my addiction started when I was super young. My parents got divorced when I was 2 years old. My father was an alcoholic. He threw my mom through the front door and then he left at the age of 2. And so my relationship with my father, who actually just passed away about 10 days ago at the time of this recording, like my relationship with my father was one where he constantly, in my perception, was choosing booze, never called for my birthdays, Christmas, never came to any of my games. My mom got remarried when I was 4 to my stepfather. We moved to a farm when I was 5. And my mom worked all the time. So I was with my stepdad, who every day of my life just told me how worthless I was, how I could never get it right. You're going to be a worthless Mexican like your dad. You're just going to be all this stuff. And so for me, Adam, I spent my whole entire youth trying to be successful, trying to show them that I'm worthy of their love. I'm worthy of their respect. So I'm class president, team captain. I'm a standout in my community, straight A student, like all the things. And none of it ever got them to love me or to come pay attention to me. So I know that there's probably a lot of people out there who can relate to that feeling of just wanting to please one of your parents, but no matter what you do, you can't. And so somewhere in my mind, Adam, I realized I taught myself that no matter how much success I have, it'll never matter to the people I love. Wow. So what do is I start drinking. And again, it's not like this call, like I'm itching to drink, but I'm like 16 and I'm drinking. And every time I'm in the car, I'm drinking a beer because it's cool. I want my friends to see me how cool I look. I'm drinking and driving. I'm sneaking booze into my classroom in a little water bottle and calling it apple juice because I'm look at me. I'm searching for validation, for acceptance, like just to be different, right?
Yeah.
And so by the time I graduated high school, I had a full academic ride to go to college. I went for 1 semester and I found this little tiny thing. Some of you may have heard of it. It's called cocaine. And cocaine like literally changed my life, right? That turned into this dropping out the first time and just really falling apart in my life. And I start spinning out of control. I'm like living out of my car. I'm disconnected from all the people. I'm scrambling for money to try to use. And finally I'm in Illinois. I'm from Illinois. I end up in San Diego, California at the age of 21. And I have an apartment that has nothing, right? I have a job, but I have an apartment that has nothing because I'm spending literally all of my money on booze and drugs. And finally, when I was 23, enough was enough. I opened my computer. And for those of you who are old enough, I opened my MySpace account. And my girlfriend at the time, who literally just broke up with me like a couple of days before I just moved to New York. And I see a picture of her on MySpace and she's with this guy under these covers. And they look like they were probably just doing, I don't know, some exercise or something.
Wow.
And I called up my dealer and I was like, that's it, man. And I took an 8-ball. I took 53 half bars of Xanny and a 5th of vodka. And I drank it, took it down as fast as I could. Immediately after that, I was like, oh my God, I don't want to die. So I'm in the bathroom trying to, do my thing and it wouldn't work. And so I'm panicking. I'm starting to kind of fall out. And I call my mom, for those of you parents out there, I mean, I can't imagine now what this would be like 2,100 miles away from home. I call my mom up and I'm just telling her, I'm sorry. Like, this is what I did. I'm falling asleep on the floor. She's screaming, Marshall, wake up, baby. Marshall, wake up, please. The next thing I remember is I woke up in the emergency room all by myself. It must have been nighttime because all the lights were off. There was nobody around. Curtain was closed. And the first thing I remember was, oh my God, thank God I'm alive. Immediately followed by, wow, I'm so worthless. I can't even kill myself. It's like God almost tried to break through. And then that subconscious loop caught again. And so for the next few years, I didn't want to kill myself anymore, but I didn't want to live. I got this terrible tattoo that says live fast, die fun. And I'm drinking and partying. And I'm doing all the drugs and I'm just spinning out of control. There's things in that time frame that I could definitely probably be in prison for. But God had a plan for me. And
Amen.
so finally, when I'm about 26 years old, I meet a friend of mine. He's about 4 or 5 years younger than me. And he's this dude who starts talking to me about vulnerability. He's a little tiny guy, like a little scene kid from back in the day. And he's talking to me about being vulnerable. And sometimes he'll tell me stories and he cries when he's telling them to me. Or I'll go to leave and he'll be like, yo, bro, I love you. I'll see you later. And I'm like, I love you. Bro, you're a dude. You know what I mean? Like, ease up, man. No, 26 years old, Adam, and no man had told me I love you, right? Not even like, no, I love you. In a world where us young men are just wanting to be needed or understand a rite of passage or something to give us purpose, I never had any of it. So here's this kid who's telling me I love you, and all of a sudden he's starting to change my life. Now, fast forward about 6 months later, and Dustin was struggling hard with addiction, using prescription pills, drinking all the time, father of 2, broke as hell. It's the middle of winter, and he gives me a call in February of 2014, and I let it go to voicemail because I knew what it was about. I knew that he was struggling again. I didn't have the space. I didn't have the capacity to answer. I was dealing with my own shit, dude. And so I let it go to voicemail. I listened to it, and it's him. He's crying. He says, Marshall, I really need to talk to you. Give me a call when you can, brother. All right, late. And I'm like, okay, I'll call him tomorrow. Tomorrow turned into, I'll call him this weekend. This weekend turned into, I'll call him whatever. A month goes by. 4:30 in the morning, I get a call from his sister. And she says, Marshall, Dustin's gone. He hanged himself last night. For years, I blamed myself. But that was the opportunity when I was 27 to change everything. That was when I first started to decide I need to tell my story. What if I had picked up that call? What if I had told Dustin what I was going through, what I had been through? What if I told him? Up to that point, I was so ashamed and so embarrassed and felt so guilty that there's not any chance I would ever let that story see the light of day. And then I wondered, man, if I'd only opened up and told Dustin what would have happened. Now, longer story longer, I ended up meeting this guy who was a speaker. And that's when I ended up being like, wow, I can speak for a living. Now, I say all of that because that's not even barely the story of addiction, bro. The real addiction starts when my trauma is fully revealed. So here's what I mean. For the next couple of years, I spent building this really big business called Top Paid Speaker, traveling the world, people paying me hundreds of thousands of dollars. And the pressure just got to be too much. Somewhere within like the first year, I accidentally made my first 6 figures in 7 months. I say accidentally because I didn't do it on purpose. It just kind of accidentally happened. Then all of a sudden I realized what I have in my hands and I'm scaling my business to 7 figures. Although this imposter syndrome exists inside me. Somebody gives you $20,000 and you're like, what am I going to do? How am I going to earn this? How am I going to make sure they don't think I'm a fraud? So now all the pressure that I felt that I never healed from my past, what do? I start using again. I start doing coke at harder than I've ever done before. I mean, now that I have the money, it's a constant thing. So here I am traveling the world, speaking on stage, talking about being inspirational, talking about your message, sharing your story. Meanwhile, my life is falling apart. My relationship is falling apart. My health is falling apart. And my addiction was at an all-time high. Sometimes things aren't always as they look. Right. And so the story of my addiction was that, to a point finally where in 2019, I walked into my penthouse, 21st floor of this building downtown San Diego, overlooking the ocean, overlooking the 2 bars I used to work in that I never thought I was going to get out of. Just finished up an event. I walk into this thing. It's 9 o'clock at night. I look out over the ocean and I realized I'm more miserable ever than the year I tried to kill myself. And that was when I decided to pull the plug. I pulled the plug on this almost 7-figure business. I pulled the plug on a $1 billion network, on a 5-year relationship, 13 years in San Diego. And I literally left. And this is the funny thing. I didn't know, Adam. I didn't do it on purpose. I swear to God. But something was telling me to get out of San Diego. And it told me to go to the wilderness. And so I did. I went to, I'm in Montana now. I moved to Montana 2 years ago to live in a cabin in the mountains with no internet and hide out and never be found again. I don't know if anybody listening to this has ever had a little bit of success or had a little bit of what you wanted and then had it taken away. The crash is hard. It's hard. And it's an easy time to start using again, or it's an easy time to go back on what it is you say you're doing. And so when I got to Montana, it turns out I don't know any drug dealers here. There's not a lot of cocaine dealers in the area. And so by randomly, I got sober. And that was 532 days ago. It's been a little bit longer since I last used cocaine, but I just finally had to take a look at my life and be like, dude, and when is enough enough? Like I'm snorting coke to come up, and then I'm crushing Xannies and snorting them to go down, and I'm living this message that's not true. And so for a lot of people, I want to share the story because it's like addiction is different for everybody, right? And so is sobriety. Yep. It means something different to all of us. But for some people listening to this out there, you're like me, where it's not like you're itching and you're like, I need to have it. It was a distraction. It was a mechanism, a coping mechanism, right? So I could, which is crazy, be present. Like I did blow. Now I can think of, like, I know now to be present because I didn't know how to be present. I didn't know how to just be with me. And for whatever reason, that kind of gave me the permission to slow down and chill out. And so now here we are, only 532 days into my recovery, and everything in my life has completely changed. Like night and day. Getting sober is the greatest gift, hands down, I've ever given myself ever. And I'm not like my girlfriend, she drinks, she can have, but she, not really, we're not drinkers. She can have a glass or two of wine and she doesn't feel the need to go ruin her life like me. Right. And so alcohol makes me weak. And so I had to steer clear of it. And that's how my sobriety journey started, and my recovery from addiction, you know, getting therapy, getting help, being around the right people, getting in the right rooms with the right people who have the right information. It's all the same thing when it comes to success. And I just applied those success principles, my addiction recovery. And it's been hard in the beginning, but it's like a cakewalk now.
Amen. Amen. And you're in Kalispell, right?
I'm in Kalispell, Montana. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I was actually homeless and got kicked out of the homeless shelter in Billings, Montana.
No way.
Yeah, and that's actually where I ended up getting sober.
Where at? In Kalispell?
In Billings.
Oh, no way, dude.
Yeah, yeah.
Where
While I
are
was
you now?
homeless. Medellin, Colombia.
Oh, shit,
little
really?
further away.
I almost moved. So I almost moved to Colombia right before I ended up meeting my girl, who here I am now, and it's been a year and a half later. But that's interesting, man. Yeah, dude, Montana's a good place for healing. There's some healing energy up here, bro.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot of great people there, a lot of great faith there also. It's
well, it's like I sometimes I wondered how I ended up here, because I grew up on a farm, but I wanted to leave that behind as fast as I could. So when I moved to the city, I was like Mr. Beach guy, dude, like board shorts and whatever.
Yeah.
And so when I ended up in Montana, I was like, what the fuck am I doing in Montana, dude? Like, what am I doing here? But then to be here and to understand that Montana has the highest suicide rate per capita. Teen suicide is up over almost 60% from what it was in 2018. Yeah. Addiction is running rampant here through the valley. And so it's interesting because a lot of times if we just stop trying to do our own plan and we just get clear on healing ourselves and call it what you want, God, spirit, the universe will put you exactly where you're supposed to be. And so, you know, at first I wondered, oh, well, how did I end up here in Kalispell? But now I know that like this is supposed to be my little area that God has given me to plant these ideas, these things, and to be able to bring into fruition. And so it's very humbling, and it's always like this new exciting thing, because when I start to live in my sobriety, everything is new. I mean, I'm 37, so everything I do is brand new for the first time. Like I went to a music festival last year sober. That was my first time ever doing that. You know, nice. I dance now more sober than I ever did when I was drinking. I will definitely say that, which is, I don't know how that worked out, because I can't.
I'm still working on it, because I used to dance at parties and stuff, and now I'm like getting out there, like trying to get my groove back. They dance different down here. I'm trying to learn that salsa stuff, you know?
Oh yeah, that's right. You know what? That Latin flavor is true, man. It's like that could be a little intimidating. I'm half Mexican, so everybody on my dad's side can move and groove. And so when I'm with them, I might be a little shy too.
Yeah, dude, my first date down here, I went out to dinner with her. We were sitting there, we were talking and eating and stuff, and then all of a sudden this band comes in and starts playing, and then everybody stopped eating and stood up and started dancing. And the girl I was with like looked at me
like, let's go.
Oh crap. Like what? And then we stood up, we started dancing too, and I was like trying to do the whole thing. So
but isn't it like cool? Because like in my sobriety, that's the one thing, is that usually I would find ways to feel bad about myself, or to say, oh no, next time, and then really just like make her either go dance with another guy, which I'm going to be like, oh, hurt about or whatever, right? But it's when you keep practicing and firing that mechanism of moving through the fear, Even though like if I was using and a girl asked me that, I'd be like, oh no, I'm good. No, really, like I'm just not feeling it, you know, as opposed to when you're sober, you're just kind of like, oh no, stop doing it. I don't want to do it. Okay, let's go. God dang it.
And then it ends up being an incredible time.
An incredible time.
Yeah. It's just like skydiving, You know, I've been able to skydive in 3 countries now in my sobriety. And while I was using, it was something since I was like 16 years old, I always wanted to go skydiving. But by the time I was of age to go skydiving, I was never able to get away from, you know, dope for that long. And I wasn't going to spend that much heroin on skydiving. Right. So I celebrated my 6 months by going skydiving in Colorado. And then I've skydove in a few different places now. And, you know, that feeling of like that fear of jumping out, right?
Yes.
Is immediately followed by the most blissful feeling on the planet, you know. And we can look at the same thing. We can look at the same thing with sobriety, right? Because when we were in our addiction and our solution to life was drugs and alcohol, our solution to the way that we felt, our solution to the way that we thought, right? How can we not have a fear of going into life without these things, right? And you said something earlier. You said that it's your life now in these last 532 days is completely different, right? So what about sobriety? What are the thoughts, emotional changes or life changes that you have noticed specifically from getting sober?
Dude, excellent question. I'm just gonna take a time out real quick while it's on my mind. Dude, you know what you should do is on the anniversary of your sober date, maybe what you do is host a 1-day event that's like skydiving for sobriety. You get some addiction speakers out there to like wherever the little airplane yard is, and then at the end of it, you guys go up and you raise money and then you donate it all to a cause, dude. Like skydiving for sobriety, that could be cool.
I love it.
Anyways, so the recovery process was interesting. I will be honest. For me, the way that it happened was I had a plant medicine journey. I went on a psilocybin journey. First time I'd ever done it, or used mushrooms at all, and the only time since. And it changed my life in 2019. And I was it like dissolved the ego long enough for me to realize that, for me personally, that nothing here matters except for love, and I'm just going to die. So what was the difference? So for whatever reason that worked for me, that medicine, that sent me on this journey of needing to connect with nature. And so I didn't get that back then in 2019. And that's what led me into Montana. So when I got to Montana, I started going out into the mountains all the time. Like I just was out in nature, and was the very first time ever that I met God, like truly met the God of my spirituality, was in nature. Something about the way that it moved and the books I started reading and the things I was starting to fill my mind with was showing me how was proving to Marshal Gillen how we as humans and nature and the divinity of the universe is all one, right? And so I'm looking at the trees and the animals and all these things, and one thing leads me to another, and we start talking about like natural biohacks. I'm like, oh, what's that? I didn't know I could put my bare feet on the ground and it helped, take the electrical charges out of me. And I didn't know that I could get into cold water, and it did like 50 things that were super incredibly beneficial for my mind, body, and soul. And I didn't know I could do breath work and meditation. And I didn't know that the sunlight made that big of a difference, especially if it's like on my bare skin. And so all these things I started to learn, and I just didn't have anything else, Adam. So in my recovery, I just started doing these little things. I mean, I would literally be on the couch crying about something in this cabin, bawling, saying out loud, I trust you. I trust you. I trust you. Like whatever it is. Right. And so, but I wrote a routine for myself, and my routine, and it's not for everybody, but my routine, because I realized that not everybody can move to a secluded cabin in the middle of the mountains. Right. I was getting into this cold bath every single day.
Let's go.
Every day. Yes. And I didn't know until about probably almost 200 days into my sobriety, when something big, that wasn't that, no, that's not true at all. It was about 70 days into my sobriety. And the way that I got sober is I walked into a bar one night. I've never been at this point in my life, I wasn't a drinker. I just would drink sometimes, but when I drank even one beer, I was like, what do you guys want to do? And so I walk into this bar and I meet this bartender behind the bar, and I'm just asking her questions. She's like, yeah, I got a DUI 7 days ago, and now she's sober. And so we kind of clicked and we kind of hit it off, and we started talking, and we started dating. I'm like, well, if you're going to be sober, I'll do it with you. And then that's how 50 days went by. And I was like, well, shit, I might as well keep going. I've been wanting to do this for the last 5 years. And then that girl left me for another dude. And that was the first opportunity I had to spiral out of control. And all of a sudden I was on the back patio of my cabin, and I remember thinking how upset I was, and I closed my eyes and I imagined what it felt like every time I got in the cold water. Now, I don't know if you get in cold water, Adam, but even
Yes.
right now, yeah, okay. So even I don't know about you, but still to this day, every time I get ready to get in, I do not want to get in every day. And I'll be like almost like this fear of like almost like an anxiety inside me. And I'm like, oh, okay, like let's go. But what I find is, and I'm sure you can relate, when I get into that cold water, I have a set time I'm going to be in there for. And when I can find my breath becomes the anchor, and I'm able to release.
Yeah.
And I'm training my body at a cellular level to let go of the stress, to understand that anything is manageable, and that when I say it's time, I can step out of this.
Yes.
And there's something about the repetitive of creating a habit out of that. And so here I am, I'm going through this now gnarly breakup where I would almost 100% of the time go on a week-long bender at least. And I'm breathing through it, and I'm thinking of that, like I thinking of it like when I got in the cold water, and I'm like, oh, this is gonna pass. And before I know it, I was like, it was like literally, it was like 30 seconds later, and I didn't completely release it, but I had released it, and it was like, oh my God, this shit works. I was like, this shit works. And so for me, that is the process of my personal recovery. I went to meetings for like the first month, and being a speaker and somebody who teaches personal development the way that I do life, it wasn't a good fit. Like when I was in there with like some true addicts who were like in there, I was more of a hindrance and a disturbance to them, because I was so far in my journey from where they were that the things I was saying about how to change your life were making them angry. Like they were like, who the fuck do you think you are? Thoughts become
Can I just
Please,
pause you
please,
and say,
please.
I really, really, really appreciate you making that choice, because I found a lot of times in fellowships, because I suffered in the fellowships for over 7 years, going to meetings regularly. Even for months, I went to 1 or 2 meetings every single day trying to quit, and I couldn't get the message that was necessary for me to recover.
Yep.
And there were people that might not suffer from the same thing that I suffer from, and they were coming in and telling me things like, you got to do a gratitude list every morning. You have to wake up and choose not to use, and these kinds of things. And I'm like, how do you do that? Like, I don't understand.
Yeah.
And then it took one person, as I was like, because I was listening to YouTube videos every night of recovery speakers and just like trying to find the message. And it took one person, Chris R., sharing his story in a way that related to me, that made it so that when he talked about how he got sober, I did exactly what he said. And then I got sober, and that's the power of us having a community like that.
Yeah.
But what you're doing, I just applaud you for doing that, bro.
I appreciate you, but it's like but I think that goes for all of us as leaders in general. It's like I tried to be in the place that I thought I was supposed to go.
Yeah.
And even though I wanted to be there because that community was actually helping me and the knowledge I was getting, I had to take a look at myself and realize that the energy that I was feeling when I left didn't align with who I really wanted to be. And even though I wanted to be in that community and I deserved it, like why are they like making me feel like I'm trying to help them? But that was very indicative of the same story that's always made me use. And so it was a reflection and an opportunity for me to go, okay, how about you take responsibility, Marshall? And how about you just go out there and do it? And what I mean by do it is start talking the message, because I know that you'll agree, Adam. It's like if you are someone who's listening to this, who's tried a recovery or who has been on either Adam's side or my side, like if you feel like you're not fitting in the place that you're at now, just start talking more about it. Maybe share it somewhere online. Share something about what you're going through. Share your story, because I guarantee you your tribe will find you.
Yes, 100%.
When I wanted to start speaking in 2016, I didn't know how to get paid to speak, and nobody put me on stage, dude. So I was like, screw it. I'm just going to build my own stages. And that's how Top Paid Speaker was born. I just started making my own events by accident. All right. And I was like, well, you guys, then I'll just build my own stage. And same thing though, is like, when I looked at my recovery, I was like, I need this recovery program. And I was like, fuck you guys. Then if you don't want me, which that's not the thing. I'm not mad at those people. Hurt people. And but I wasn't the person. So I was like, all right, fine. I'll just go build my own recovery, my own support system. And so I went out and started this thing called Community First Project, which is here in the Valley. And I started hosting monthly events. And now my tribe is coming to me because of that. And I found people who not only I can support, but who truly support me through this recovery process.
Yeah.
And I think it's just so important. It's so important to start talking about these things.
Amen.
Because your people will find you.
And if there's anyone out there that is in fellowships and you might be struggling with the group that you're in, I've also found that a fellowship, whether it be, NA or AA or CA or whatever, they have autonomous groups, which means that group can actually be ran in a specific way with the traditions in line, but this group might not fit you, right?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of other groups, and if you've been to maybe a couple meetings, if you're out there struggling, you've been to maybe a couple meetings and something happened in the meeting that made you not want to go to any meetings, I really, really, really suggest that you go to a different address meeting every day for a week.
100%.
And just listen to the people in different meetings and see if you can relate to some people, because humans are sick.
Yeah.
Humans are sick. And there's a lot of great people in the fellowships that are helping a lot of people.
Yeah.
Right. So what is this event for? And it's in the valley there in Montana.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it's like, so when I had that experience here in the valley, I was just like, well, there's people like me out there that are addicts that don't look like they seem. Like, it's like, there's got to be other people out there like me, and for me, it's like, I know what that looks like from being from a standpoint of somebody who looks like he has it all together, who's leading the way, but who actually is secretly an addict because they can't take the pressure. And so here in the valley, Flathead Valley for the listeners, it's up in northwestern Montana. It's literally a valley up in the mountains. It's a gorgeous place. We have Glacier National Park here, one of the most beautiful parks I've ever seen. So we get a lot of tourists. Also, the valley has had an influx of people moving in, a lot of people from California. So I say all this to give context what I'm about to share is that a lot of the locals, not only do they struggle with mental health or addiction or things like this, they're also insanely pissed off and angry because other people are coming from out of state and buying up all the property. So now the people who work in the valley can't afford to live here.
Yeah.
The people who there's for hire signs in every single service business in this whole entire city because nobody will work. And some people are like, well, shit, nobody wants to work anymore. It's like, well, no, bro, the people that are willing to work those jobs can't afford to live in the houses that are in the valley because you're a dick and you raise the rent so high.
Yeah.
And so everybody's upset about it that was local. And I just had to take a look at myself and go, okay, dude, like, I don't fit into this community here. I want to talk about suicide prevention and addiction recovery, and I want to talk about the power of entrepreneurship to change your life. So how about this? How about instead of everybody bitching, moaning about how things are in the valley, how about I just teach them the skills to help them fight fire with fire? Okay, cool. So that dude wants to come in from out of state and buy real estate investment property. How about I just teach you how to buy your own real estate investment property? And then let's help the valley win.
Yeah.
And so the Community First Project was born in a way to get community leaders in the same room together. So we could then start to talk about these issues, talk about these topics. And then through that vehicle, I have guest speakers that come out once a month and we'll talk about things like how to spot when your kid is feeling depressed or how to have conversations with your kids. We have a youth summer camp coming up here at the end of August called Warrior Workshop for Kids. It's a leadership mindset and lifting training camp. And so through this Community First Project, we're just creating these buckets for men, for women, for families, and for youth, where we can empower them with the skills that they need to change their life. And then by osmosis, we're getting to have these conversations about addiction and mental health that these type of leaders wouldn't otherwise just come out and be like, yeah, they're not ready to let go of that, or they're recovered and they also want to get behind putting on different events and so again, I just creating this big soapbox where I'm going, hey, yo, we're preaching about addiction recovery and suicide and entrepreneurship. Who wants to join the movement, dude?
Yes.
And it's just coming. First meeting had 7 people at it. Second meetup had 7 people at it. The one before that was 12. And I think last month we had maybe 21. So it's in the beginning, nobody's going to come to your stuff. So if you went and invested in a recovery speaker, okay, and you're learning from Adam and you go and you do all the things Adam says, and the first time you do it, it's not Tony Robbins size, don't beat yourself up. Like, I have helped literally more than 3 million people globally, right? That we can track, more than $124 million in client earnings. Like, I'm really good at that one thing that I do. And even when I launched this thing, only 7 people gave a crap. And so,
Right.
but those were still 7 souls that started a movement. And so that's what we're doing. It's like, I've been so big on this grow where you're planted thing lately. You know, everybody wants to send money to Ukraine, and we want to help all the people in the world. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't, or that those people don't need help. What I'm saying is that a lot of people want to help, they want to give back, and they don't know who to trust or where to start. I'm like, bro, there are people in your town right now tonight.
Yes.
There's kids that don't have a place to sleep. They
Yes.
haven't had a meal. Like, when they leave school on Friday, they won't have a meal again until Monday. There's
Yeah.
people right now. There's moms that are struggling. There's dads that are struggling. Like, start in your community. And so instead
Bro.
of just talking about it, I just did it.
Yeah. And they I saw this study that, you know, in this equation basically on the amount of money one time that we sent to the Ukraine. And I'm all for helping the world, right?
Right.
But with the amount of money, and I don't know if you know this, but I went to Columbine High School. And with the amount of money that was used and given to the Ukraine, we could have hired 3 full-time SWAT officers at every single school in America. That's with the salaries and everything.
Right.
And I understand, like, and then some people will say, well, why do we want to have SWAT officers? Because, you know, it's happening.
Yeah.
Because it's become a thing now. We can't get rid of the guns. We can't do that yet, at least. And we have to do something about these shootings. We have to do something about them. We can go into that another time. But you said something earlier that I wanted to touch on. And for anybody out there that is either in recovery speaker or you're thinking about becoming a speaker or any of that, you said that you had 7 people at that event, right? And that's 7 souls that are there.
Yeah.
Did you speak any differently to the 7 than you would have to 700?
I know where you're going with this question, and it's an excellent question. The answer I got to give is sort of, but not the way that the audience may be thinking. So my very first ever meetup that I ever did back in 2017, I was living in San Diego, hosted downtown San Diego. I had 89 people show up. My goal was for 100 people. Now check this out, Adam. This is how broken I was. I had been doing this thing, having success for about a year and a half. Finally decided, you know, I'm going to host my first meetup. The brand is big enough, get 89 people to show up. The night that it happened and we had 89 people in the room, I was so pissed off. I was like, I can't believe we didn't get to 100. Are you kidding me? Like, what are we even doing here? Like, I was like, I mean, generally, like, think about how much of an asshole that is, like a douchebag.
I get it.
89 people. And I was like, I was thinking 125. So I was like, we couldn't even get 100 people here. Wow. Cool. Well, let's go fucking do this stupid fucking meetup.
Oh, no.
Right. And I did it. And it was great. Nobody would have understood. Nobody that was there would have known.
Yeah.
But I had to crash and burn. I had to hit rock bottom, because when I came back now and I relaunched with my first meetup, now granted it's in the middle of Kalispell, Montana, which is like, there's nobody here. Certainly nobody that gives a shit about going to personal development meetups, right? And 7 people showed up. Now I know what you were saying. It's like, did you talk to those 7 people any different than you talked to 700? And it's like, no, I still almost sounded the same. But the reality of it is I did. And I did because I talked to those 7 people like they were the most important 7 people that I was ever going to talk to again in my entire life. Amen. Because God gave me another opportunity to do the thing that I love.
Yes.
I took it for granted. It's like the story about the guys with the talents. You know, the master leaves and he gives his talents to his servant, and the one servant buries his talent because he doesn't want to lose it. Yeah. That was me with the 89 people being all mad. Now it's like, here I am with a little. He can be trusted with a lot. Little will be given a lot.
Yes.
And so now here I am with my 7 people, and I'm like, whoa, yeah, baby. All you need is a chip in the seat. I'm back in the game, dude. Yes. And so I felt bad because those 7 people probably got the best stuff I've ever had, because I'm fired up. I'm back on stage for the first time in 2 years. And I'm just like, I'm pouring into you from a cup that's overflowing from the brim, baby.
Yes.
And so, yeah, I mean, you know, I want to say it wasn't different, but it was. And it was different because of my sobriety, because the first one I did, I wasn't sober, probably had an 8-ball in my pocket that I was waiting to just start doing after I got done with that event, as opposed to now I'm like, bro, I'm a stepfather. My stepfather was a mean guy. I was at this first event a couple of months ago with my sons. One of them who spoke, our 13-year-old So my 10-year-old and 13-year-old, they lost their dad to drug and alcohol addiction. Basically, his body shut down when he was 36. They had to walk in when they were very little, about 6 years ago, and tell their dad in the hospital bed goodbye for the last time. And he passed away shortly after that. When I met these boys, I have a similar story about drugs and alcohol. Now, my father, like I said in the beginning of this podcast, just passed away about 10 days ago. He was an alcoholic his whole life. 10 years ago, found out he had cirrhosis and had to stop drinking. And so he did. And when my dad decided to stop drinking, he called me. We did not have a good relationship. I did not love him, really. And I was like, if my dad can stop drinking, I can start a business. And that's how I started my business, right? And so the next 10 years, my dad and I started to rebuild their relationship. The last 4 years, it's been really good, even though we didn't talk a whole lot. And then I had to drive home. My dad got pneumonia in March and never recovered. And then it was pretty apparent that he was going to die. He lost like 50 pounds. So I flew back to see him in Wisconsin. And on June 27th, I went to see him. He was 110 pounds.
Wow.
And I don't mean to make it too much, like too serious, but it's like I walked in and it's like, how do you say goodbye to your dad for the last time? Like, how do you be like, all right, Dad, well, we got to run. So, and it was a very hard thing to deal with. My two boys were there with me. Okay. So check out how cool God is, right? Because what God has done is, how often do our kids get an opportunity to be there to support the parents? In something that the parent doesn't have experience in. So I have to walk in. I ask my boys, my family, my girl, my queen too. I asked my family to come with me to Wisconsin from Montana to go see my dying dad. Those two little boys, like a trooper, walk in. They say what's up to my dad, and they're coaching me through the experience because they've already been there. What a great gift I'm able to give them to be able to hold space for me. And so it's crazy, because why I say all of that is because it's like, now here I am in Montana. I'm doing these events. Our 13-year-old has started this Instagram, in the Instagram bio, where he wants to talk to kids about losing parents and what it's like to deal with addiction. He spoke at one of our monthly events already, our 13-year-old, on addiction and recovery. So what I'm saying is, it's just so much different, because when you find sobriety, in my sobriety, I've really truly connected to my purpose. And God has brought me and these boys together to go out and create a big mission. And so the difference about these 89 people and the hundreds of thousands of dollars and the 7 people is that I get to share this thing with something that means more to me than any money. And that's the ability to do this with my boys, to do this with my family, and to build something, and to show other little boys out there who have maybe come from broken homes, or like a new age together home, or step parents, or this or that. Like, I'm trying to show people, it is possible to have everything you want. I wanted to be a father. It's not in the way that I was thinking it was going to be, but like, how great of a gift is this? They don't have a dad. I lost, like, it's cool. And so I think when you take a step back and you get sober and you trust the process and you go through the storm, you sit in the storm and you feel the pain and you let it process through, and you continue to get good at that, God will start to work in ways that can only make you laugh. When like it's just like it happens, or things happen, and you're just like,
amen.
Okay, bro. It's like, you're just flexing. I get it. I get it, dude. I already know. Okay. And that's how my life has become. And to anybody who's not here yet, it may sound like I'm just, who's this guy just saying how great everything's going to be. I'm telling you, dude, I was the dude lying dead on the floor. I was the dude doing lines off of dirty, gross bathroom toilet stalls. Like, I was the dude picking rocks out of a fucking gross carpet, pawning and hawking everything I own just for a little bit of money. Like, I was that dude. Yeah. So, and I know you were too, Adam. And so it's just, I want people to know, like, it doesn't matter where you've been, what you've done, or who you've been. When you make the decision to change and you can find a purpose greater than you, your whole life and everything about you will change, and you will experience the most abundant and prosperous and fulfilled lifestyle. It doesn't mean that's all sunshine and rainbows and it's like everything's great. Like, no, like, anger and sadness and disappointment are emotions that exist in this reality, and they're things that you're going to experience. And getting to be alive and getting to experience the full spectrum of life is the gift. It is the gift. And the longer that we use, or for me anyways, that I was just cutting off or judging half of those emotions as bad, which is me judging half of life and existence as bad all of the time. Yeah. And how can you find any excitement or joy or peace or love when you're constantly in that,
Amen. And you just said something that, we didn't have a discussion about this, like, prior to this, about going into that topic or anything. But you just said something that I've been drilling into the recovery community, is that the number one relapse prevention or fulfillment, the concept, is purpose. Like, finding that thing that that you are just so in line with, that you love so much, that you can do every day without feeling like you are, working too hard at it, right?
Yeah.
And that's the same thing as God's will, like
100%.
knowing what he wants you to do and going towards it and working towards it every single day. And
Yeah.
it doesn't even necessarily mean that it has to be your vocation, right? Because people out there in recovery think that, maybe they have to become a professional speaker or have to tell their story professionally in order to make it their purpose. Like, no, I worked my butt off with a different business, with a job to start, and made it so that as I was sharing my story, on the side as my purpose, I was also working over here on things to support myself, right?
Oh, dude, 100%. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
Well, no, because I'm thinking about that, and I'm like, dude, you're right. Like I grew up blue collar, working $10 an hour job, manual labor jobs, right? It's like, okay, so let's say you work construction, you're like, okay, Marshall, everybody I work with is an addict and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, dude, if you got sober and went to work and you just led the way and showed by context that it's possible, like that could be your purpose. What if you changed an entire work crew just because you decided to make a decision? Maybe you're a baker. Maybe you own a bakery and you're like, well, Marshall, I've been recovered for, 10 years now, but I don't really understand how my recovery ties into my bakery. Every single morning people walk in and they have an opportunity to start their day with a message that you can give them, whether it's a smile or saying, I love you. Like there is purpose in everything. Now,
yes,
I will say this, Adam, because I want to get, a lot of people will be intimidated by that, especially if you've never like thought about, oh, what is my purpose? Or maybe you have, and you're like, oh, dude, I don't know what my purpose is. This throws people for a loop. And this is maybe not reflect with Adam's ideals, I'll say, for this podcast. But for me, and I'll just keep this very broad, I kind of think of life as a game. Like if it was a simulation, I'm not saying it is, but like if it was a simulation and Marshall Gillen was the avatar, the character that I get to play, and the point of this life was just to keep beating stages. And the way that I beat those stages was to get a bunch of tokens and take those tokens and upgrade my character. Right.
Yes.
Like if I think about my life like that, and then you don't always beat the stage the first time, right? It's like you're coming back. And so the reason I say that is because if my life is a game, then there's really no purpose to it. And so the reason I say this is because I'm like, when I tell people, I go, dude, there's no purpose to life. I hate to tell you that. I hate to be the one to tell you, but there is no purpose. Like, it doesn't matter what you do. You could grow up to be the most famous person, save all the lives on earth. And when you die, maybe for 1,000 years, people remember your name, but it all goes back to the same thing. Like God loves you no matter what. Like you come from one energy that is source energy, that is all one thing that goes back to whatever it comes from, regardless if, and I know this doesn't align with everybody. Like, so the reason I say that is because a lot of people get so intimidated. Well, how will I find my purpose? Well, what if I told you there was no purpose and that this thing was so magnificent that you could make up any purpose that you wanted? And as long as it's the one that you love and that you're the most behind, you can't get it wrong. Because a lot of people stay so stuck. They're like, well, what if I have the wrong purpose? It's like, bro, you don't have a purpose. You're going to die no matter what. So why don't you just pretend like you're a movie star or you're a game character? And if you were Marshall Gillen and you could create anything, like what purpose would you live by? And I'd be like, oh, bro, well, I guess like this character's like purpose would be to get people to stop killing themselves. And I'd be like, great, dude. So how do we live that purpose?
Yeah.
And so I say that all in kind of a comedic way to say, listen, if you're trying to find your purpose, it can be whatever you want your purpose to be.
Yeah.
If it makes you feel like this feeling of love and excitement and joy, and you just cannot get enough of it. Like I can't stop telling people about telling their story. I don't know why. Before I was even doing this, every time I'm like, well, did you ever think about the fact that like if you told it this way, you might. I can't get it. It's in my DNA. Yeah. And so I just say that about purposes. I think you're right, Adam. Like finding your purpose will change your life, but don't 100%. Put pressure on it because it can be whatever you want it to be. Just decide. And then like my football coach said, put your foot in the ground and go, bro. Like put your foot in the ground and go.
Yes. I love that. And there's two things I want to touch on. While you're getting people to tell their stories and while you're, telling people to be loud about recovery and things like that, 47% of American adults have someone they love in their life that is currently struggling from drug or alcohol abuse. So that means that every single time we randomly tell our story or our mission to some stranger on the streets, right? 1 in 2 of them is going to be impacted in a very personal way by us sharing our story.
Fact.
And that's why it's so important, because it could be someone that is affected by it, or it could be someone that is, a family member or a best friend. And maybe that person is the only avenue to that addict that's struggling.
Yeah.
Like, hey, do you mind if I have them reach out to you? You know, I don't know how many people, how many strangers I have given my contact info to, or my Facebook page or my email, to have their son or their daughter reach out to me to talk, you know? And something else, I saw that you have a picture with Les Brown, right?
Yeah.
And I've actually emailed back and forth with him at the very early stages of my recovery. But he said something that that really hit me and that I tell people a lot. Desire. You know, that desire, I believe that the desire in our heart is what is drawing us towards purpose, right?
Yes.
And desire
Yes.
comes
Amen.
from the root words that mean of the Father. So if something is in our heart that we actually want to do, and we can look at it like in different perspectives, but if we desire to do something and we're a believer, that is literally the call of God on your life.
Facts.
Amen.
Amen,
And it is the most like fulfilled you can possibly feel when that heart thing goes away, and it's actually the thing that's driving you.
Yes.
It's no longer a thing in your heart saying, I need to do this. I want to do this. I want to do this. It actually becomes this power that pulls you by the chest into your daily actions. Right?
Let's go. Dude,
Yeah.
it's so true. I love that you said that. I share this with my people all the time. I'm like, if it is in your heart and on your mind, it is not by an accident. Like, there is no way that this divine thing that's so freaking perfectly designed down to the freaking millimeters of everything would accidentally put something random in your mind that's not meant for you. So I love that you say that. It's like, people are like, well, I don't know why I have this desire to make $1 million. Like, probably because God knows you're a steward of his money. So if he gives you $1 million, you're going to go do the good things with $1 million. Right?
Yes.
Like, that's how I look at like having money. I'm like, dude, I'm a steward of God's money.
Yeah.
I money works through me. And so I love that you say that, because if it's on your heart and it's in your mind, if it's on your mind and in your heart, like, it is for you. It's not random. There's no mistake. Go search some Steve Harvey on YouTube and give that a listen for a little bit. And like, you'll be ready to rock and roll.
Amen.
I want to share something that you made me think of real quick. When I travel and speak to business people all the time, like that, like high level entrepreneurs. I was at a real estate investing event with like, dude, 7, 8, 9, 10 figure earners, like these insane people. Right. And at the beginning of all of my speeches, I always open with 2 universal questions, start getting them on a yes set. But when I'm talking about your message, I'll be out there and I'll be like, how many of you, have ever thought or have ever dealt with mental illness or mental, health? And people will be like, oh, and I'm like, you don't have to raise your hand, for this next one, but how many of you have ever thought about hurting yourselves? And it does not matter the net worth in the room. Almost always, at least, if not more than half the room's hands go up.
Yeah.
So to touch on what you were just sharing with the community, it's like, bro, it is so important to share your message, because it does not matter what room you're in. Adam just said the statistic, like, there are people out there who are struggling, suffering in silence, that need somebody to give them permission to change their life.
Yes.
It may seem crazy, but it's like they need permission to change their life, which just means they need to be able to ask somebody for help. Yeah. Now, I know in our society that asking for help is not like, that's not like the cool thing to do. But I was listening to, actually, I was in St. Louis for that event I was talking about earlier, and I was talking to a buddy of mine who runs a podcast called The Dad's Edge. And I think he's he's interviewed like 38 Navy SEALs. And he was talking to Jocko. I don't know if if you've heard of Jocko Wilkins. And so Jocko's on his podcast, and he's talking to Jocko about SEALs are the most bad mothers in the whole world. Like, they can operate on their own at the highest level, maybe the higher level than anybody else. So what is it, Jocko, that makes Navy SEALs the most successful warriors in the world? And he says, we ask for help. And the guy who's telling me the story is like, wait, what? He's like, we have to understand we have 6-man teams. If one of us gets pinned down, we're counting on the other guys to come. Because if we're down one man, if we go to a 5-man team, we're screwed, because we can't operate as a 5-man team. We're a 6-man team. Therefore, the most important aspect of being successful and that they give the highest rate of probability of mission success is we learn to ask for help. Yeah. And so why I'm telling you that is this whole entire episode we've been talking about sharing your story, proving to you that you can overcome addiction and recovery when you make the choice to and have the desire to, and that you can position that story to go out and save and change lives. And Adam can even help you make a living sharing that story. You can go out and literally become a paid speaker, learning how to impact lives by using the framework and system that Adam's created, called Recovery Speaker. So the reason I tell you all of that is to tell you, like, all this information is good, but information plus application equals transformation. And the only way that you're going to be able to transform your life, whether you're looking to break the throes of addiction or you're looking to take the next step and help more people, is we've got to learn to ask for help. And we've got to be cool asking for help. And so for me, Adam, all these things we've talked about for the last hour, like, they're all great, but it boils down to two things and why I had success. Because I had the desire to change it, and because I went out and found the people who were already having the success I wanted to have, and I asked them how to do it. Period. That's it. Everything in life is that simple. Like, whatever it is you want to accomplish in the world, in business, in a relationship, in your recovery, go out and find somebody in the world who's having the type of success that you want to accomplish, and then invest time, money, and or energy into learning how they did it. And that's it. That's it. Everything in life is that simple. Learn to ask for help.
What would you say to the recovery community that has never invested in a program before, or never invested in themselves, or invested in a course, or invested in coaching or mentoring or anything like that? Because I'm working with people that I love my community.
Yeah.
Like, sometimes it brings me to tears. Like, I love my community. I want to make impact in this community so badly, because we're losing so many people, and we've never done something like this before in this community.
Yeah.
And I immediately, when I started doing the course, when I started breaking it out, and I spent tens of thousands of dollars creating this thing, right?
Yeah.
And then people started hating on me because I'm charging for it.
Yeah.
What would you say? Because I have my ideas, and I'm going to, what would you say somebody would get from their first investment in themselves?
Yeah, for sure. I think that's an excellent question. The first thing I would say to that person is, I love you. Like, truly, dude or girl, like, I love you. What a cool life we get to live. What an opportunity to still be alive and still feel everything. And the opportunity to make an investment in yourself is not something, it's planting a seed, right? When you are able to finally love yourself enough to choose a growth mindset, anything is possible. And so the first thing for those people is to understand there's two types of mindsets that you can have in the world. You can have a growth mindset, or you can have a fixed mindset. A fixed mindset believes that you're born with talent, nothing in your life can change. You got to play the cards you're dealt, and this is just how life is. People with a growth mindset understand that talent is developed, that anything is possible when you have the desire, the right to do it, and the right people to tell you. With a growth mindset, you know that abundance is possible, that prosperity is possible, that anything in your life can change. So I'm not talking about right or wrong. I'm just talking about at any point in your life, you can choose to have a growth mindset or a fixed mindset. For people who learn to love themselves and they learn how to develop a growth mindset, they take a look at everything and they see opportunity. If you guys search a guy by the name of Bob Proctor on YouTube, Bob Proctor talks about paradigm shifts. A paradigm is the way that you believe something to be. So, Adam, to answer your question, in the beginning, before I ever made my very first investment in myself, I was a working class person, and I had a fixed mindset thinking, how is my life ever going to change? How can I do these things? Then one day I needed to get a job done. I was actually painting a room in my house, and I went out to Home Depot or whatever to buy the tools to get this job painted. And I grew up on a farm, like working boy, and just painting with just a brush. But I saw this thing. It was like a corner. It was like to paint corners, like a little plastic thing. It was like $6. I was only going to use it one time, and I was like justifying why I wasn't going to spend $6 on it. And I was like, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to buy it. And so I'm home painting my freaking thing with corners with this paintbrush. And I realized, I was like, oh my gosh, like, some things in life I don't need forever, but it's a tool I need to get a job done. And at the time I was like looking at my life like that, because I was wanting to get out of bartending. And this guy was offering me a program for $67 to learn how to start a business. And at the day before the paint job, I was like, you're going to charge me $67 for that? Like, I can go out and do that for free on my own. And there's a video I saw that guy being like, then go do it on your own. Yeah. Go take the 8 years it took me to learn how to do this. Yes. Go take all the opportunities and chances, all the failures, all the mistakes, all the knockdowns. I'm rooting for you, bro. Go do that. Or you can do what wealthy and successful people do, which is called collapse time. And you can collapse the amount of time it takes to come from here to here by having somebody teach you to do it, which looks like an energy exchange of $67. Because I've gone out and done all this stuff. So I'm going to exchange my energy that I've put in, and I'm going to exchange it for a measurement of energy that you have, which is money. which is for, I'll give you this for $67. And you're like, okay, cool. Give me the paintbrush and teach me how to do that.
Yeah.
And so when I think about somebody, all that, long story again, longer, it's just that if you're thinking about investing in yourself, it's the greatest thing that you can ever do, because right now your life is a certain way.
Yeah.
You believe in a certain paradigm that you're going to have to do this one thing forever. And that's the only way you're going to be able to try to accomplish the things that you want to do. But you realize that within that paradigm, you're never going to have the money or the freedom to be able to accomplish the life you want to accomplish.
Yes.
So here comes Adam, and he has a tool called Recovery Speaker. And he's like, hey, yo, bro, did you know for a small investment, I can change your life? If I could teach you how to make a living month after month, year after year, forever, would it be worth it to you to invest this amount of energy in a monetary form to be able to learn how to do that for the rest of your life? Yeah, that'd be worth it. Cool. Go to recoveryspeaker.com and sign up. And so when we think about, okay, well, how do we change our life? The paradigm shift really needs to be, how do we move from fixed mindset to growth mindset, and understand that we can accomplish anything by learning how to shortcut or collapse time for people who already know how to do it.
Yeah. And I haven't actually, and I really, really appreciate that. And I haven't actually, put this out there a lot with the people that are interested in Recovery Speaker, but because mostly I believe that people want to share their stories to help addicts. The people that I've met, that's how I started. Like, I just really wanted to get out there and help people and help other addicts in recovery, help other addicts. Right. Yeah. But I do have, when you get through the course, you become a certified recovery speaker, a certified recovered on purpose recovery speaker. I sign the certificate, you get it in the mail, and then you become affiliate of the course also.
Yes.
I put out your videos on my YouTube, on my Facebook, and all this. I interview you on this show, and then you have your own link to every single video you do for anybody that wants to get into the course, right? Yeah. And I don't push that out or anything, but that's that's part of it. And just because you were talking about how to make money on it, it's part of it, right?
Bro, it's time. It's time for you to start talking about that, Adam. It's time to get out. It's time to get out. If there's any of that imposter syndrome there, bro, it's time to get out and start talking about that, because it's important, because there is a certain demographic that you are serving through this podcast. Yeah. And now the podcast becomes self-sponsored by Recovery Speaker. Hey, thanks for tuning back into another episode of Recovered on Purpose. This episode is sponsored by Recovery Speaker. If you're a leader who is ready to turn your story into a profession, make sure you visit recoveryspeaker.com and get started today. All right, today's guest is a 5-time college dropout. And so I know that these are things that you know, but it's like there's some people that are listening out there right now who are where we're at, and they're listening because they want to know how they can connect their story to their business. I ran into the same problem. I charge anywhere from $10,000 to $50,000 to work with me. I realize that most of the speakers that come into, or most of the people who are going to listen to me, the majority of them are not, one, somebody who wants to become a top paid speaker, or two, is going to have $10,000 to $50,000 to invest in a program, a mastermind, or one-on-one coaching. So I had to find a way to be able to serve the people that my heart truly wanted to serve while still being able to make a lot of money. So I started a community event, and I started a podcast, and I give away free courses or access to free people. And so to you, Adam, which I'm sure you already know, and to anybody that's listening, if you're wondering kind of like, oh, I have this program and I've been wanting to promote it, but I'm a little nervous because I don't want people talking shit. Well, just understand that there's thirds of marketing. A third of the market's going to know you and love you. A third of the market's not going to know who you are yet. And a third of the market's going to hate you no matter what. The only person that you're ever talking to is the third that loves you and the third that doesn't know about you. And half of these people are still going to make a choice one way or the other. So if you're scared to put your stuff out there, I'm not saying that Adam is, because I know he's not, but if you're scared to put stuff out there because you're not sure of the feedback you're going to get, I'm just going to spoil alert. You're going to get hate. And that's okay, because we started this off saying the one hater to the 50 people who supported you. And so
100%.
Yeah, man, I'm going to start sending people to you. I'm going to be like, you got to get up with my boy, Adam. He has this great program called Recovery Speaker, and he'll teach you how to make a living out of helping people, which I don't know to any of the listeners if that sounds cool. But if you could make a living to help a lot of people and have the freedom to travel the world and meet awesome people like Adam and like me, then it's worth your time and investment. Probably at least click on the link and go check out what Adam has.
Yeah. I love that. And guys, I want you to realize what just happened. Okay. Is you guys have seen me putting out Recovery Speaker. You've seen me, with the messaging, with the marketing that I've specifically been using. But watch what a successful person in this space just told me in less than 10 seconds that could possibly completely change the outcome of my ability to reach people with this course.
Yeah.
That's the power of having a coach or a mentor or someone,
Amen.
a network of people that you can talk to and learn from with the things that you're going towards, right? So Marshall, I really, really appreciate you coming on, brother. This is an awesome conversation. I'm
Thank you so
excited
much
for
for having me.
the community to hear it, brother. And where can people find you? Where
Yeah,
should they
man.
look you up?
I'm just a regular ass dude. So like, let's like honestly be friends. If you have social media, just search at Marshall Gillen at any platform and just connect with me and then say what's up. Say, like, I was listening to Adam's podcast and we could just be real life friends. So there's no links. There's no number to opt into. Just find me on social media and let's be real life pals.
Awesome. And guys, we've been talking about, courses and things like that, but we love you and thank you for being here. And I have something for free for you now. Let's go. Hey, you. Did you know that I wrote a book? It's called From Chains to Saved, One Man's Journey Through the Spiritual Realm of Addiction. It's a collection of 21 short stories of spiritual experiences I went through before, during, and after addiction. In my recovery since I published it in 2019, I've been able to share it with thousands of people around the world, and it became a #1 bestseller. And now, I'm able to give it away for free to everyone that follows this page. Go to FromChainsToSave.com after the show to pick up your free digital and audio copy. Enjoy the show, and I'll see you after.